Call this to order this meeting of the Villa Park Village Board today on May 7th at 7 p.m. And we'll start with a roll call. Clerk Konecki, please.
Yes, Trustee Aiello, Trustee Kazone.
Here.
Trustee Case.
Here.
Trustee Tucker.
Here.
Trustee Wagner.
Here.
Trustee Silella.
Here.
President Volkers.
Here. And we'll all stand for the pledge, and after the pledge, please remain standing for a short prayer. Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please remain standing. Trustee Wagner has a short prayer for us.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that might affect the residents, staff, businesses, surrounding communities, and all those that enter the village of Villa Park. And continue to remind us that all we do here today, all that we can accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, next item on the agenda is any public comments on agenda items. Is anyone from?
I have no one signed up.
Okay, anyone else, just in case, on an agenda item?
Yes, I'm sorry. The homeowners won't be here until 7:30.
Okay.
I apologize. I thought
Sure.
the meeting started at 7:30 and it's 7 o'clock. I apologize.
Well, I guess we can rearrange the agenda. Do we need to? We can
No,
just change it.
or you
Okay.
should do it under 18 if you want to do it then.
Okay. Yeah, Carol, we'll put you down at item 18. No, it's an application.
Oh, okay. Just do it. Thank you.
If I forget, remind me, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we'll go on to number 5, proclamation recognizing Municipal Clerks Week. I have here, whereas the Office of Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the Office of Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the Office of Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government or other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, and whereas municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, and whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the Office of Municipal Clerk through participation in educational programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their states, provincial, county, and international professional organizations, whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of Municipal Clerk. I, therefore, Albert Bothus, President of Villa Park, do recognize the week of May 6th through 12th, 2018 as Municipal Clerk Week, and further extend appreciation to our Municipal Clerk, Hosanna Konecki, and to all municipal clerks for the vital service they perform in their exemplary dedication to the community they represent. This date, May 7th of 2018. And I just want to add, since I've been on this board, especially now since I've been president, I really see the work that our clerk does behind the scenes. Usually she's just up here quiet, calling the rolls and asking for votes, but beyond that, the hours she puts in, I know I put a few hours in with all the documents I have to sign, and but she has to do the same thing. So it's a lot of effort, and we really appreciate your effort, Hosanna.
Thank you, President.
Okay. We'll do the number 6 later when we do the proclamation, when we do the awards, okay? So we'll move down to the consent agenda. And on there, we have the minutes from the board meeting of April 23rd, 2018, and B, the bill listing for the weeks of April 23rd and April 30th, 2018, for a total amount of $823,173.88. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Trustee Kazone?
Mr. President, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I will second that
Trustee
motion.
Tucker? Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Trustee Case,
Yes.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
Trustee Silella,
Yes.
Trustee Kazone,
Yes.
who did I miss here? Trustee Tucker,
Yes.
President Volpus.
Yes. Okay, item 8, first reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending the minimum fees for certain ordinance violations and codifying the prepayment penalties for minor violations. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. The police department issues over 400 ordinance violations each year to individuals that have committed acts that have been declared to be unlawful or a violation of the village code. A violation of the code is currently punishable by a fine of not less than $75 and not to exceed $750. The minimum fine has not been increased since 2011, and there is currently not a provision for a prepayment penalty. The police department recommends that the minimum fine be increased to $100, and for those offenses to be considered serious in nature, a minimum fine of $150. The maximum fine would remain $750. Additionally, the ordinance should be amended to allow for payment to be made without having to appear at adjudication hearing. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And this being a change in our municipal code to be in the first reading, so we don't need a motion, so we just open that up for discussion. Does anyone have any? Trustee Wagner.
I didn't see where it's specified, but what offenses would qualify for the $100 fine?
Well, let's see here. The $100, yeah, there's some 150s on the note I have, but I don't see any.
Next page.
Next page? Okay,
Did I miss that?
here. No, oh, here it is.
There's a minimum fine.
That's the minimum.
Yeah, that's, we're changing the minimum. So if you look at page, I think it's 3 or 4 of the ordinance, and you'll see where it has a little chart that says minimum fine if paid within 10 days. There are 2 categories. One's if it's 150, and one's if it's 100.
And I think we're.
Correct.
Wagner's-
What are
But
the
your
fines for
question was
100?
what?
What I'm asking is, what,
Violations are those?
pardon me?
You're asking what violations that would be?
Exactly.
Okay. All violations are 100, except those on the page before that, which are 150.
Okay.
That's the question.
So my question is, just an example of a fine, of a offense that would be a $100 fine, just out of curiosity.
I mean, it could be retail theft, it could be code violation. There are a few that are more serious that aren't on here, but those would be specific ordinances. There are some vicious dog bite cases where the minimum may be $250. Those don't change because those are specifically in the code. But
Okay.
in general, everything, every municipal code violation is basically going to have now a $100 minimum fine, except for those listed above. And the ones listed above are a little more serious. They, they include things like drug cases, cannabis, disorderly conduct, trespass, cruelty to animals, and some of those are a little more serious, so they have a higher minimum fine. And the minimum fine is important because when it goes to administrative adjudication or goes to court, the hearing officer or the judge cannot give less than the minimum fine. So that's why it's important to keep your minimum fines a little more reasonable than, and it also then gives the categories for which can be prepaid.
Okay. thank
Maybe
you.
Chief Lay could just give us a couple examples of what would be minimal fine.
Good evening. Yeah, just a couple examples I know off the top of my head are such as possession of tobacco by a minor, or violation of school curfew, or violation of park hours, just for an example of what those are.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's all I want.
Okay. Trustee Tucker?
I had a simple question. Are these only the ones implemented by the police department and not by the tickets for grass and lawn and whatever that are put through this doesn't include them? correct? This is only the police
This.
violations?
No, it affects more than that. The general penalty in section 108 affects all offenses. So the minimum of 100 to 750 would include all offenses.
So it would include the offenses not ticketed by the police department also?
So
Because we have
Could
tickets put
include
out
some
by
property
the...
maintenance violations.
Right, okay.
Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Item 9, first reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending water rates. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. The village receives water from the City of Chicago through the DuPage Water Commission, also known as the DWC. On May 1st, 2017, the DWC increased water rates by 8 cents per 1,000 gallons. On May 1st, 2018, the DWC will raise the water rates another 6 cents per 1,000 gallons. Village staff is proposing a 16-cent per 1,000 gallon rate increase effective October 1st, 2018. The new rate would be $9.01 per 1,000 gallons. This would allow the water fund to maintain a positive operating cash flow and sufficient operating reserve. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Again, this is a change to our municipal code, so this will be just for discussion. I would just like to point out, first off, this also applies to non-resident rates. Those rates would go up from 1770 to 1786. So they would also be increased. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Trustee Tucker?
I have a question. What is the actual amount that we have to keep for positive cash flow? I noticed you put in here that the current budget for it is $4.3 million. That's the current budget, but what is the actual rate we need to keep for positive? Because we're above that right now.
Okay.
So what's the actual bottom line that we would have to keep to make it a positive?
Well, Director Vitas Deskelis will come and explain that to us.
Well, just like with the corporate fund, we like to maintain a minimum of 90 days operating surplus, but then the remainder of our surplus is usually invested into capital improvements. Every year we have a capital improvement program, and that's partially funded with any excess revenues we have over operating expenses. And that also includes paying off any debt we have. So we're funding some future projects through IEPA loans. So in order to receive the loans, number one, you have to have a positive cash flow every single year, and you also have to show the ability to pay back the loan. So that's another reason we want to pass on any increases so that we do have enough positive cash flow to pay off any future loans.
What's the bottom line, though? What's the actual
Pardon?
cost? What's the bottom $1.09 that we would have to keep? You said 90 days, but what's the actual?
Well, it varies from year to year. I mean, I'd have to look it up in the budget for exactly what's proposed for this year.
We can give her a number.
Yeah, tomorrow we can give you a number.
Okay.
All right.
I think our fund balance
It
was
moves.
about 1.8 million, thereabouts. at the end of this
About
fiscal year.
1.8
So
is
that's
what-
how much fund balance we had in the water fund. A portion of that was needed for the 90 days.
Trustee Wagner?
Just a question, how many non-resident properties do we supply water to?
Very few,
Very few,
less than 10, I would say.
less than 10, okay.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, 10. First reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending the regulations for collation of small wireless facilities. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. Villa Park uses the public rights-of-way to provide essential public services to residents and businesses, and is authorized to regulate the public right-of-way under Section 11-80-1 of the Illinois Municipal Code. Public rights-of-way are a limited public resource held by the village for the benefit of its citizens, and the village has a custodial duty to ensure that they are used, repaired, and maintained in a manner that best serves the public interest. Wireless telecommunication providers desire to install numerous new small wireless facilities located within public rights-of-way within the village. Public Act 100-0585, effective June 1st, 2018, adopted the Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act which specifies how municipalities may regulate certain conditions of the co-location of small wireless facilities. It is necessary for Village Code to be modified to reflect the requirements of Public Act 100-0585. Thank you, Ron.
Okay. Again, this item is just for discussion. Just for the board's knowledge, is this came through Springfield, and the DuPage mayors and managers and a lot of mayors in the surrounding communities worked real hard to not implement this, but it became plain after some lengthy discussions between the wireless companies and representatives from communities and state officials that this was going to pass, that the governor was going to sign this, and it's not really what the local communities would like to see, but this, passing this ordinance will allow us to at least put on the regulations that are required, that we're allowed to do, that the state has given us the authority to do. There has been an agreement from the wireless companies and from some state representatives and the governor that they're willing to make some modifications in this, but that remains to be seen. But it does take away some of our ability to regulate these small wireless facilities. So, I got that covered?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So, with that, we have any questions from the board? I think you've all got a copy of the state statute, the Public Act, in your packets. So, no questions? Okay, we'll move on to item number 11. Second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending the regulations for police alarm systems and false alarms. Manager, can you want to read that?
Would you like me to? Your Honor?
Yeah, we'll read that tonight.
The police department responds to hundreds of false burglar alarm activations annually. Response to false alarm activations can impose an inherent danger and may take officers away from their emergency response calls or duties. Additionally, officers frequently respond to false alarm activations and have difficulty making contact with an owner or manager because alarm holders do not keep their information updated with the police department. The current fine structure for false alarm activations is too low to force alarm owners to make the necessary corrections to prevent continual false activations and comply with the provisions of the ordinance. An increase in the fine will help to reduce the amount of false alarm activations and assist the police department with maintaining current and accurate records for alarm permit holders. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for the second and final reading? Trustee Wagner?
I'd like to make that motion.
Do we have a second? Trustee Kazone?
I'll make that second.
All right. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Okay, Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Tucker?
Yes.
Trustee Salella?
Yes.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Kazone?
Yes.
Trustee Wagner?
Yes.
President Bolkus?
Yes. Item 12, resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, adopting the bike and pedestrian master plan. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. On April 24, 2017, the Villa Park Board of Trustees approved a resolution for the development of a bicycle and pedestrian master plan. The plan is available for resident review on the village website at www.invillapark.com, and hard copies are available at both community centers, that's the ICC and CRB, Village Hall, and the Public Library. Discussions on the plan have also taken place at several committee meetings. Staff recommends approving the plan. And Your Honor, we do have a guest with us this evening, and Director Fuel may like the opportunity to introduce that guest.
Okay, well, first off, let's have a motion for the resolution. We have a
President
motion
Bolkus?
for Trustee Wagner?
I'd like to make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Trustee Aiello?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Director.
Hi, good evening. Yes, there was a group of people that volunteered to be on the Master Bike and Pedestrian Plan Steering Committee, and I'd like to personally recognize those people for taking the time out of their schedule to give input and take personal bike rides through the village in an effort to give input to the plan that you'll see recommendations for this evening. So part of the steering committee, Dave Casey, Marianne Greco, Mark Hayes, Gene Hopkins-Smith, Manager Rich Keener, Sid with the DuPage County Department of Transportation, Kevin Mantles, Gina Raccanelli, Al Stash, Trustee Bob Wagner, and Tim Walsh. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Heather. She's with the Active Transportation Alliance, and she actually helped put the plan together. So with that, she has a presentation she'd like to share with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me from here, or do I need to speak into the microphone? Okay. Okay. So I'll give a brief presentation tonight just to give you an overview of what went into the plan and what some of the recommendations are. Obviously, if you've read it, it's a longer document, so we won't go into detail tonight because we'd be here until tomorrow morning. So to give you a sense of what our process was, we met, as Dan mentioned, the plan was approved back in March of last year. Thank you, Marianne. And we got to work right away with the community trying to identify priorities and goals for the planning process. Our first steering committee meeting was held in May of 2017, where we had about 16 members attend to help us identify what the goals and vision for the plan were. Our steering committee members also promoted the plan and reviewed recommendations, as we already discussed. The plan also included an existing conditions analysis where I looked at a lot of data, including crash data, other planning studies that have been conducted in the area and throughout the region. And our group went on a bike ride through Villa Park to check out some of the trail crossings, some of the opportunities and barriers to biking and walking here in Villa Park. We also did our best to engage the community in multiple ways. We had an online survey and map where we had over 200 community members respond, letting us know where they think some of the crossings are more challenging, where they'd like to see better bikeways or sidewalks improved. Through the Environmental Sustainability Commission, they were at every event last summer tabling and handing out flyers about the plan and letting people know about the survey. And we also held a community meeting last October where about 30 residents attended and kind of dug in a little deeper and told us more about the issues. So this is in progress now because we're hoping for adoption, but we've had the staff review the plan, the steering committee, and also trustees. So moving forward, this plan will of course be a multi-year process. It won't happen, and none of the recommendations will happen overnight. But the goal is to have a list of priorities that can be implemented over time. Some of this can be funded locally, and some of it are larger projects that can be funded through federal grant funding. And by having this planning document, you'll be able to be more successful and more eligible for many grant programs. So I'll skip this slide since it's a little redundant. But again, we did reach people in a variety of ways. And tried to think about creative ways to reach the community. So not only were we tabling at events and having online promotion, we also put signs out on the Prairie Path and Great Western Trail to let people know about the plan and how to get involved. All residents were mailed the survey information in their water bills, so everyone received it in some capacity. We at Active Trans, since we are an advocacy organization and have a pretty large list of members and supporters, we sent out notices to everyone that's on our list, letting them know about the plan that live locally in Villa Park. And so we tried, again, to reach people in as many ways as possible. So through this process, with the steering committee and through the things that the community told us, we developed a vision for the plan. which is Villa Park will build its robust trail system, compact street grid, and transit access to make it an ideal place to walk and bike. And there's 3 main goals that are included in the plan recommendations. The first is focused on creating better connectivity through the trails, the Prairie Path, the Great Western Trail, and the Salt Creek Regional Greenway to both local and regional destinations, and of course to improve the user experience along the trails. We of course heard, because there's such a great trail system here in Villa Park, we heard a lot from the community about things they'd like to see improved in the trail system, both from an infrastructure perspective, but also just from an etiquette perspective. Our second goal was about walkability, so that's to improve walkability throughout the town by providing a complete network of sidewalks in good repair and by improving crossings. Again, I think because there is such a robust trail system here in Villa Park, we heard again from a lot of people who are walking here, either to get to the trails, to get to the metro station, to get to the downtown or St. Charles Street, and therefore people had a lot to say about the quality of sidewalks, the condition of crossings, kind of where they thought it was harder to get across the street than other places. So we got some really detailed data from the community on those issues as well. And then our final goal for the plan was to develop a village-wide bicycle network that improves access both in town and to regional destinations. Again, you already have really great regional connectivity because of the trail system, but we heard, of course, from the community that getting to the trails can be challenging. You know, there's really no north-south bikeways. And we also heard, of course, about some of the crossing conditions for cyclists. So some of the key recommendations for Goal 1, I think what we heard loud and clear was to improve the crossings on especially the Prairie Path and the Great Western Trail, especially at Ardmore, Villa, some of the busier streets. So some of the recommendations that we came up with for that were to install certain types of beacons, like you see in Elmhurst with what's called a rectangular rapid flashing beacon that can be installed at certain intersections to show that people are there at the trail ready to cross the street and alert drivers to their presence. And in other cases, it may be more appropriate to divert the trail to the nearest intersection. And on our bike ride, we took, again, a visit over to Elmhurst just to see what they had done, and they did have an intersection that did just that. And it's working a lot better than having it mid-block. Another thing we heard was that the Salt Creek Trail gap along Villa Avenue where it goes on street is challenging for people, both from a wayfinding perspective, but also from a safety perspective. There's kind of 2 not very visible crossings that you have to do to stay on the trail and get to the off-street section near North Avenue. So this plan includes recommendations for what could potentially be done. I think that issue needs further study, though, to determine what's actually feasible, whether it would be an off-street trail or maybe creating a wider sidewalk or just doing on-street pavement markings. Another key recommendation for the trails goal is just to improve wayfinding generally through the trail system. I think a lot of people coming to Villa Park don't, especially if they're not from here, don't realize what great trail access there is. You might be just cruising down the Prairie Path and not realize you can also get on the Great Western Trail, or that you can get on the Salt Creek Regional Greenway. So installing signs that kind of inform people from outside of Villa Park that this is possible can really help build your community, and also directing people to local destinations, local businesses to stop and have a cold drink or get a sandwich can really be helpful. Again, I talked a little bit about the crossing improvements, but the plan does include detailed recommendations and possible design scenarios for all of the crossings along the paths. So for Goal 2, some of the key recommendations include filling the gaps in the sidewalk network. We heard from the community about different gaps all over the place. You know, there's sort of some older areas of the community that maybe were annexed later in time and didn't include sidewalks, or they weren't zoned for sidewalks when they were built. And I think one of the key connections we heard about was on the connection to Walmart on Washington Street, that a lot of people are trying to get there either walking or biking, and you know, there's just a gap there and people aren't able to do it safely. We also heard about sidewalk quality. Again, the sidewalk network here is pretty robust, but it is aging, and in some places tree roots have lifted up segments of the sidewalk, or there may be cracks, and those can really impact people's perception of walkability and comfort when they're doing it, especially if they're maybe pushing a stroller or in a wheelchair. Of course, there's also lots of crossing improvements we heard about. Through the planning study, we heard a lot about, especially the crossing just outside these windows at Ardmore and St. Charles. Anything from not having enough time to get across the street to not having enough space to wait if you're with your kids in a stroller or with a larger group. We kind of heard it all from the community. So there are detailed recommendations, again, for several intersections in the community. You can see here, this is kind of what the chart looks like. So for the final goal, develop a village-wide bicycle network. There are several goals for that. Again, we heard loud and clear that people were interested in seeing more north-south bike routes, especially because we have these great trails running east-west. Villa Ave was one of the most popular streets that were identified by community members as a bike route they'd like to see in the community. And depending on where you are on Villa, there is enough space to install a bike lane, so that can be studied and maybe implemented over time. Villa Ave, again, was another one we heard a lot about, that gap in the Salt Creek Trail, but people were also commenting on Villa Ave south of the trails because they are trying to get north to reach them. In addition to those, we had some east-west routes that were identified by the community. Washington was one, and that actually connects into Lombard's bike network that they're building currently. So again, the goal with the bike network is to figure out how to get people to the trails first, but also to figure out how to make a safe network for people trying to get to school, to the local businesses, even up to North Avenue. So the plan also includes a section on implementation, so the final chapter details what might be first priority projects versus longer term projects. So again, some of the kind of initial things we thought were most important to do were to start by improving the trail crossings along the Prairie Path and Great Western Trail, developing a wayfinding and informational signage system throughout the village that can be done fairly low cost and kind of unveiled quickly. Focusing on creating that first north-south bike route that connects the trails can be another priority. Possibly improving the pedestrian experience along St. Charles Road. So not only did we hear about this crossing right out the window, but we also just heard generally people have trouble getting across the street along the corridor. There's only three signals along the entire stretch of the corridor through Villa Park. So in some cases, people are wanting to cross but aren't able to because they don't have a signal. So there could be opportunities for improving St. Charles in that regard. And the final priority is to continue to identify gaps and deficiencies in the sidewalk network and develop, continue to use that system that you have to prioritize those improvements and keep moving that forward. It's kind of a long-term thing that I think every community works on and tries to implement over time. So the plan didn't just focus on infrastructure, we also had non-infrastructure recommendations. And some of the things that rose to the top for the steering committee were first to form a bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee. So through the plan, we had this group of people that came together to guide the process, set the goals and priorities. But longer term, this group or a similar group of residents can help shepherd the plan forward. So they can do everything from comment on future projects that are happening to helping organize events and activities around the plan, just to make sure that things are moving forward and progressing as the community wants to see it happen. Some other things that rose to the top were holding bicycle and pedestrian themed events. We had a lot of folks commenting on different events they'd like to see on the trails, bike safety things, walking safety events. So you can kind of be creative with these ideas and do fun themed events that throughout the year that remind people that you can actually walk and bike here in Villa Park, and it's a great activity to do, something that the whole family can take a part of. Another idea was to develop a trail etiquette campaign. Again, we heard from folks that either People might not remember to call on your left when they're passing on trails. People might forget sort of some of the roles and responsibilities you have as a cyclist or a pedestrian when you're crossing the street. So having a kind of thoughtful, intentional campaign that reminds people of the rules and the etiquette and the things that make everybody a little bit happier can really help, create a better community around the trail system. Another idea that we talked about in the steering committee was expanding the 50/50 sidewalk program. We know that it's a popular program here in Villa Park, one that many residents want to participate in, and there's a very long waiting list. So if there were room in the budget in the future, this could be an option and something that could help kind of fix the sidewalk system a little more quickly than is currently happening. And then the final recommendation that we discussed in the steering committee is developing a complete streets policy. And if you're not familiar with that term, a complete streets policy is a kind of a commitment by local governments to consider all modes of transportation when designing their roadways. So I think a lot of us know that the traditional method of roadway design is to think about just moving cars as quickly through intersections as possible. Complete Streets thinks about who's using the road, how are they using it, and how do we make it a safer place for everybody. So this isn't necessarily a binding policy, but it's a policy that sets an intent and a process for how you move forward building your streets. So again, the kind of next steps we're recommending kind of right after plan adoption is to launch the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee and then kind of get started right away on those near-term priority projects. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And I thank the commission too, the committee, a lot of work went in this, a lot of time, a lot of nights. We appreciate all that you did, and for helping us out with that too, Heather. Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Ciela.
Looking at the study, I may have missed it, or it may have been buried in one of the websites that was available to go look for some answers. Bicycle safe grates, sewer grates, are they addressed in roadways where bikes will be positioned to travel in?
We didn't address those in the plan. I don't remember seeing it as an issue. Are there specific places where you've noticed them in Villa Park?
Well, just the standard of having bicycle safe grates available in the areas in which bikes are being directed to is something that needs to be looked at, and it has quite a cost attached to it.
Yeah, it does. I believe...
I didn't see it in the plan, so I'm just wondering if it was deemed unnecessary or if it was overlooked.
It wasn't overlooked. When we were out on our ride, we didn't notice any specific places. I think for the most part, the grates in Villa Park are okay. Marianne's agreeing. She bikes pretty regularly.
Yeah, I've biked a lot in Villa Park, and in general, they're okay. I've ridden over several of the grates without any problems. So I don't think that it's a huge thing. There might be one or two, but I don't think anybody even mentioned it in public comments either, and I've never seen one.
Well, they probably wouldn't until they got their bike caught in one.
Yeah.
And also, I noticed there was a section in which it identified intersections that needed improvement for passing, some by schools, some areas that were narrow or whatnot. But I didn't see in the plan that anyone identified Addison and Jackson as a intersection that needed some attention. It's next to a school. They have several car accidents a month there, because it's presumed to be a four-way stop, and it's not. It's a two-way. I know it borders on Lombard and Villa Park, so there would need to be some cooperation with the Lombard area. Mm-hmm. But it's a dangerous intersection. It's not identified on that plan as needing any type of attention.
Yeah, I'm trying to look back here and remember what we did. I do see, and there's no school crossing pavement markings on that block even, so we did recommend that.
Right.
And I think the crossing, we did not recommend anything, but I can go back and look at that and see if there's something else to do there.
There's some traffic issues there.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Case?
Where's the money coming from for this proposed plan?
Well, Well, that'll be coming in a budget, what we can do. I don't, what was anything in the budget this year?
There is, Your Honor, there's $25,000 in stub year. Your Honor, there's $25,000 in stub year 2018, and a lot of the signs can be made in-house with a new sign machine, and then installed in-house as well.
Trustee Kazone?
Now, go ahead. I got plenty, but I don't want to get into it.
What is the ordinance about riding on a sidewalk? I know a lot of the plan is talking about sidewalks, but don't we kind of discourage people riding on sidewalks?
If I remember right, there is an age limit. You can ride on the sidewalks underneath a certain age. Over that age, you're supposed to be out on the street. I don't know offhand what that age is, but it looks like Mary Ann maybe does.
No, but what I want to point out that the plan is about bicycling and walking availability. So the sidewalk are focused on the pedestrians, the people with strollers and other things. So don't get too hung up on bikes because we care about pedestrians as well.
Well, I think you're worried about pedestrians getting ridden over or rolled over by a bike, you know? So I don't know offhand what the age is. I tend to think 12 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
most
think.
communities in Illinois, if they do have a restriction, it's 12.
Right.
And I believe yours is that.
I think so too. So, okay. Anyone else? Trustee Wagner?
Thank you, President Bolthus. I just want to say I think that this is a great step forward for us on so many levels, especially economic development, because we already have great resources, but it's going to help us improve them, and it's going to help be an additional selling point for the community. And more connectivity, better signage will help maybe possibly direct people towards businesses close to the trail. And just the one issue that Trustee Sola brought up, in the surveys and comments, there really was no comments about the type of sewer grate that would trap a bicycle tire. And I've ridden around the village a lot. I haven't really discovered one that would do that. I think
there are governing laws that each village has to follow, regardless of anyone brought them to your attention. And I just thought that there was a cost attached to that. It should be looked at.
Yeah, and I think it's been mentioned that we would phase these projects in. Obviously, there's a big dollar amount associated with all the signage and all the improvements. And I think the recommendation to have a bike and pedestrian advisory committee to kind of make recommendations to maybe be there to be an advocate to make sure that the plan is implemented, because in talking with other communities, there's the initial, we've passed the plan. And in some communities, it sits on the shelf. I know it's not going to happen here, but an advisory committee would be kind of make suggestions and maybe help with the public education part of it, which is one of the people on the steering committee made a good point that you really have to promote this with the community and let them know what this is all about. So, and I also want to just express my appreciation to Active Transportation Alliance. They were very professional, and Director Fiola for her leadership, and the manager as well. I mean, he started the ball rolling, so I just want to express my appreciation for that, and that's all I have.
Trustee Case?
This is a question for Vetus, I believe. Can you refresh my memory on the grates that have quite wide openings? The reason for them? There's a few grates I've noticed that have a wider opening.
We do have leaf-friendly grates in certain locations because they were areas that would clog all the time, so perhaps that's what you're referring to.
Is there
Higher
another
capacity grates that would allow the leaves to flow through rather than block.
Okay. That's it.
Anyone else? Trustee Ayala?
I just have one question.
Vetus? Oh, that was for Heather? Oh, sorry.
Did anybody
in the group ever present a suggestion on what's the best way to connect north to south, these three trails, Prairie Path, Great Western, and Greenway?
Yeah, so we started off with Villa as the kind of target street, but it gets more complicated once you get north of the railroad tracks because traffic volume gets higher, so you have to go off street at some point. And as you start approaching North Avenue, that's when it gets pretty dicey. So I think south of St. Charles, Villa is Ardmore is a good option. But going north of St. Charles and kind of once you get past the tracks, that's where it gets more complicated. So one of the options I think would be the kind of the easiest to do first off is Ardmore to Elm and then over to Addison.
Okay.
Heading north.
Here's what I'm thinking. Can we not take the Greenway to connect to the Prairie Path more easily than going over road?
So using Salt Creek?
Right.
Yes. But then you still go on street because of there's the Villa Ave section.
But do you have to do it at North? You wouldn't have to do that at North Avenue or St. Charles Road, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that could be an option too. So then if you were to do that, Ardmore to probably, it could be Washington and then up Villa. And then, of course, the Salt Creek Trail if you're further east.
Appreciate that. So to the extent there were recommendations, that was discussed, and the recommendations were more stay on Ardmore, stay on Villa, Ardmore south of St. Charles Road, Villa north of St. Charles Road.
Yeah.
Okay. And I like the sign idea. The signage, I think, will definitely help. I've been in other communities, west of here especially, that the signage definitely helps you find where you start hitting multiple trails. So that would definitely help, and I appreciate your efforts. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Trustee Tucker?
I have a question on the width of the roads you're going to try to put these bike lines on, because the width, we have narrow roads here compared to other towns. So when you're trying to put a bike path on either side or bike part on either side of our streets, you're going to cut the spacing, and I don't believe we have the spacing here to do that.
Right.
On Ardmore and Villa especially.
So on Villa you don't. So you could do marked shared lanes on the on-street section, which is what the plan calls for if you're going on-street. Ardmore you do, but it would require, if there are any areas where there's on-street parking right now, it may mean that can't be there anymore. So there would need to be a public process around that to make sure that the community is comfortable with that decision before moving forward with it. In a lot of communities, people may be perfectly okay with giving up parking, and in many communities they're not. So I would definitely recommend for any bike lane that is recommended in this plan, there would need to be a public process around it before moving forward. And I think there's only, because you have pretty narrow right-of-way, most of the streets, you couldn't do it regardless. The only streets that were large enough for bike lanes were a section of Ardmore, Vermont, and then kind of the southern part of Summit, where it's basically striped right now, heading down towards Roosevelt Road. And then part of Addison could have bike lanes on it if you were to reduce the number of lanes on the street. Right now, it has more lanes than it needs to for the traffic volume, but again, that would need to be studied further before it actually became a real recommendation that you implement.
Did anyone do a survey on how much the Greenway is actually not feasible because it floods?
Yeah, so we that was outside of the scope of this study, but we did talk to residents. Did mention the flooding, especially under North Avenue and St. Charles, is an issue, and some people were asking if this Greenway could be continued, along it between the two segments where it's missing right now. So that would have to be a study that would need to be conducted by an engineer, which I am not.
Because it's one section between from going here to Elmhurst is underwater a lot of the time. So it's not feasible to make it from a north to south due to the flood of that area.
Any other questions? Again, I thank you for your work. I noticed some of the things in there, we as a board have recognized the need. Anybody has a good idea how to make St. Charles walkable, let me know, because we've been struggling with that one for quite a long time with all the curb cuts and ups and downs, so, and the snow piled up on it in the wintertime.
It's in the comprehensive plan, we recommended 2 lanes.
Oh, excuse me,
Yeah,
you can't
but
speak.
we're in this discussion here, so. But I really appreciate it. I would like to see some wayfaring signs on the Prairie Pass, even, maybe pointing people to business districts. And what I always liked when I was riding is, how far is the next town? Or, do I know, do I keep going or do I turn around at this point, So that was, kind of helpful, especially when you start going way out west,
Yeah.
So that would be kind of nice, but that's for the committee to decide, so. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. No other questions from the board? With that, we'll have a roll call vote for the resolution.
Okay, Trustee Salella,
Yes.
Trustee Kazone,
Yes.
Trustee Tucker,
Yes.
Trustee Case,
Yes.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
Trustee Ayello,
Yes.
President Wolf.
Yes. Okay, item 13, resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, approving a proposal from Green Light Construction Group of Lombard, Illinois, for the installation of a new roof at Fire Station 82 in the amount of $28,375. Manager Keenan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Fire Department recommends replacement of the roof at Fire Station 82 located at 102 West Plymouth Avenue. 3 responsible bids were submitted for the project. The lowest responsible bid was submitted by Green Light Construction Group of Lombard, Illinois, in the amount of $28,375. Funds for this emergency project are available in stub year 2018 Building Improvement Capital Fund account number 6750202401. Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you have a motion for the resolution? Trustee Wagner?
I'd like to make that motion.
Do we have a second? Trustee Yellow?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Kazone?
Question is, this is strictly for the roof over the living quarters, is that correct?
Yes.
The apparatus roof is okay? Do we have a life expectancy on that one? Or?
15-year warranty.
Okay. That's it.
Trustee Tucker?
Is there a problem with the interior part of the ceiling and roof on it? Because I noticed on this structure, they said they were not going to be liable for anything from the roof to the interior part. So is there a problem with the actual ceiling part of it, just the roof?
It's just the roof, yeah.
Okay, so we don't have a leak through, well, we have a leak through, obviously.
Yeah,
That's
it's
why
coming
we-
down, it's running along pipes and it's dropping all over the place.
Okay,
Yeah, but
so,
it's a
but we
cement
don't have a
ceiling.
rot,
It's
yes,
a
on.
precast ceiling.
Okay, so we're not thinking of that, there, when they remove that we're gonna have a problem with the,
No.
between the two?
We don't anticipate anything.
Okay.
Anyone else? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Salella,
Yes.
Trustee Kazone,
Yes.
Trustee Tucker,
Yes.
Trustee Case,
Yes.
Trustee Ayello,
Yes.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
President Wolf.
Yes. Item 14, resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, approving the purchase of 3 2018 Ford Utility Police Interceptor vehicles through the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative in the amount of $83,961. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. Funds are budgeted for the purchase of 3 police vehicles in the stub year 2018 village budget. This resolution will allow authorization of the purchase of 3 police vehicles in the total amount of $83,961, which will be used to replace vehicles that are ready for replacement. The cost of these vehicles will be taken from Equipment Replacement Fund, account number 6550202401. Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you have a motion for the resolution? Trustee Case?
I'll make the motion.
Do you have a second? Trustee Cielo? Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Tucker?
How many vehicles do we have in the police department fleet? And how many are used for the actual patrol officers? How many are there? Can you get me that number? You probably don't have it off the top of your head right now. The other question is, you said you were moving the 2013 Charger to Public Works, so that's one of the vehicles that you're taking off the patrol swap to replace one. Where is the Infinity coming from?
Police Chief Lay?
The Infinity and Ford Explorer that are going to be replaced are admin/detective vehicles.
They're what? Vehicles?
Administrative/investigative vehicles.
Administrative vehicles. And where's the Dodge pickup that we're speaking of? Is that also?
That was an investigative vehicle as well.
Okay, so you're removing the investigative vehicle and replacing it with the Infinity, which is an administrative one.
Correct.
Okay, but where's the other two actually going? Are they going on the squad? Because you're replacing one of the squad cars. What's the other two being used for?
They're admin/detective vehicles, so 2 of those vehicles that we have in our fleet are going to go to auction along with one of the public works vehicles that the squad cars go to.
So you're actually totally replacing 3 of the patrol cars then? Is that what
Correct.
you're talking about? Okay. Do the other 2 that you're replacing have high mileage also?
Mileage was in the packet. I know one was over 100,000, one was
70-something.
70-something?
Yeah, 75 or something like that.
Yeah, the one that you're giving, or transferring out of it is the 75, or 72.
Correct.
The other 2 have over 100,000, is that what?
One has over 100, one's around 75 as well.
Is there having a problem with that? The 75, I mean, that you're saying you're gonna put it up front. Is there a problem with that
That one's
vehicle?
replacing the Dodge Ram that has basically deteriorated, so that's why that one's going to auction.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
Trustee Wagner?
Yes.
Trustee Kazone?
Yes.
Trustee Tucker?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Stalella?
Yes.
President Volkes?
Yes. Item 15, resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing participation in a Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Community Rating System, CRS program. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. Federal Emergency Management Agency has a program called the Community Rating System, which is designed to provide flood insurance discounts to residents of communities who participate in the program. Depending on a municipality's CRS score, the insurance discount varies as low as 5% to as high as 45%. Residents of Villa Park currently have policies covering over 19 million insured assets. These policies cost Villa Park residents nearly $180,000 each year. A resolution allowing the village to seek possible eligibility in this CRS program is the first step in potentially becoming a member of the program. Certification costs are expected to amount to approximately $20,000, a budgeted expense which we've taken from various accounts in the Stormwater Fund. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you have a motion for a resolution? See, Trustee Kazone,
Mr. President, I'll make that motion.
Trustee Case.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Tucker.
What's our estimated additional cost under that for the more staff we're gonna need and the staff hours that are probably gonna come in effect for the paperwork we're gonna need?
Trustee
through.
Deskelis is rushing up to the podium to answer questions.
We do not anticipate hiring any additional staff. We'll use current staff plus whatever seasonal engineering interns we have. We do a lot of the record keeping now, just formalizing a little bit and going through the training. So we don't anticipate a great amount of additional effort from what we have to expend now, just in enforcement of the countywide stormwater ordinance.
So you're not anticipating any extra staff time to do this over time?
Well,
or
it's
is
going to
that-
take time, but we're going to use our existing staff to perform these duties.
Okay, so you're not anticipating any overtime or whatever in this budget to add on because the
Well,
staff has to do more work?
Engineering staff don't get overtime.
Okay, just a question on, because it looks like you might, so you're gonna use one of the staff we have for the recommendation of the
Right,
additional
we may need some
certification staff?
consultant work initially to put the application together, and that's budgeted, but I don't anticipate we're gonna need the entire amount that's in the budget. We're gonna try and do as much of it in-house as possible.
And how many residents is this gonna?
I don't have the number on the residents. All they gave us was the dollar amounts of how much is insured, but I will say that that number is still expected to increase dramatically. There's still federal legislation out there that was put in abeyance a few years ago that if that does not get repealed, FEMA is going to have to start charging actuarial rates for flood insurance. And then the savings will be quite a bit higher unless somehow Congress does away with the Big Waters Act, I believe is what the act was called.
Do you have some estimate on how many homes are involved in this, that it's a possibility?
Well, we know how many homes are in the
residents be
floodplain,
affected?
but they don't all have flood insurance policies, because if their homes are paid off or they didn't finance, they don't need to get flood insurance. So, but when they go to sell the house, that could be an issue to the buyer if they are financing. So the number of policies will be increasing one way or another.
But we don't have a figure of what
No.
we're speaking of right now?
No, we can try and get that, but we would have to get that through FEMA, and they don't always. I'm hoping through the application process we get more detailed information.
On how many residents would be based, or homes or whatever, residents that
That's
would
correct.
be affected in here would be getting, if you go deeper into FEMA, we can know what the percentage is, that possibility that they would need it, that we'd be helping.
Right. Ultimately, right now, we're just applying. At the end of the process, I don't anticipate us saying we don't want to do it, but, you know, it is going to be a process, and we'll be finding out more as we go through it as to how much benefits is to be expected.
And are you seeing that we're going to end up in any difficulty with the disadvantage of FEMA looking at our records, that some things will come in occurrence that we haven't already planned for?
DuPage County has a very strict stormwater ordinance, so just by the fact that we enforce that, we should be fine as far as FEMA. Our countywide ordinance is actually stricter than FEMA's minimum requirements. So in that case, that's why I anticipate we're going to get at least a 15% discount right from the beginning.
Okay, so you're not seeing that FEMA's going to come in with some things that we're going to have to correct right away that we haven't already participated?
Well, unless there's something out there I don't know about, no.
Okay, well, I just, you know, because I know when FEMA gets involved, they start getting other complications in there, so that's why I wondered if you're saying that DuPage has a very strict rule already with all these.
We have
things
visits
that
now,
come in.
so even though we're not in CRS, we get evaluated every 3 to 5 years.
Okay. So we're already getting scrutinized, okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Just a quick, what are the kinds of things that we can do to go, say we get it at 7 to go to a 5? What are the kind of improvements we can do? Is it more of on the floodplain, the things that we've talked about in the last couple of
Right,
years?
I mean, there's a whole brochure that lists the action you can take. It's very similar to the fire department's ISO rating, where, you know, the more things you do, the higher score you get. Structural projects obviously is one, but better outreach, better education, better enforcement, all that. Being stricter, instead of having a 1-foot freeboard, having a 2-foot freeboard, or 3-foot, going above and beyond the ordinance, which you're going to have to decide case by case which ones are for us and which ones aren't.
Any of the sewer separation projects affect that at all, or is that more?
I believe they should help our score tremendously, yes.
Good, thank you.
Trustee Allen.
When you were responding to one of the trustees, it sounded like you said we would go through the process and then decide at the end if we wanted to be approved.
Well, the approval tonight is for the application. Obviously, we intend to go through the process, but we do have the option of backing out should we see a red flag. And of course, we would come back to the board and let you know. I don't anticipate that happening, but at this point, we are just applying.
That's not the way I read the ordinance. It says that the president and board of trustees hereby authorize the village to participate in the program and authorize the president to sign, issue the attached community letter of interest. So it's kind of
Right, so it's a letter of interest. So it's starting the process.
Because that was one of my questions too.
I don't think there's any further action required, but you can back out of the program at any time, I
Yeah, I
understand.
read that too, yeah.
Yeah, I guess what I was thinking was, why do I want to start something if I don't know if I don't know now that I want to be through it at the end? So that was why I asked the questions. But
We fully intend to go
I
through
follow
it.
what you're saying is we do intend to go through it. It's just,
Absolutely.
there could be some unanticipated event that occurs, a detail that could trigger us deciding to change our minds.
This is correct.
Gotcha.
Now,
Thank you.
Thank you. The coordinator, the person who's going to coordinate this, have they reviewed the coordinator's manual already? Do we have an idea of what our score would be, 8, 7, 9 right now?
Any DuPage community that has joined has never come in at lower than an 8, and most of them have come in at a 7. So that's historically what it's been
But has
at.
he already seen the manual and reviewed it and have an idea?
We haven't been through the training yet, no.
So, okay.
We're just going by what other staff and other communities have told us and what county staff has told us.
So when we put in the application, then they supply us with the coordinator's
Right.
manual?
The first year's budget includes some training for the coordinator.
So I think I saw somewhere in here you're anticipating a 7 or an 8. Did I read?
A minimum of 8, but we're hoping for a 7.
Yes, I saw a number of, the majority of the communities are in the 6, 7, 8 range.
That's correct.
There are a few, I see 10s, which is, I thought it only went up to 9, but it seems like there's some 10s. So, yeah, but the majority are in the 6, 7 mostly, and 8 range. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the director? Trustee Allen?
Sorry, Al. The way you answered that question of Al's was, the 20 grand that we're approving, that's going to take us through the certification process, or that's just the first year's budgeted expense in relation to getting through this process?
That would get us through the process. There's an annual renewal fee, I believe, is it $1,000 or
Yeah,
$2,000? But the majority of that is a one-time, just to go through the application process and then set up all the record keeping and the training.
Okay.
Then it's just an annual maintenance.
The annual maintenance is $2,000.
Okay, so that's what I thought.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything else? Okay, do a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
Trustee Salella,
Yes.
Trustee Aiello,
Yes.
Trustee Tucker,
Yes.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Kazone,
Yes.
President Volkes.
Yes. Item 16, resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing an addendum to the agreement with V3 Industries for the Jackson Pond project design in the amount of $45,000. Manager Keenan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Design of the expansion of Jackson Pond for the purposes of flood relief is currently in progress. Additional services beyond the scope of the original engineering agreement have been required. These services include the evaluation of an expanded service area, survey, and easements for alternate outlet routes, design of a pedestrian lighting, grading, revisions to the soil conditions, a grant application for nearly $3.5 million, and several other items. V3 Companies has submitted an addendum to its engineering services agreement to provide additional design services for these improvements at a cost of $45,000. Costs will be taken from the Stormwater Fund account number 68-502-10-292. Thank you, Your Honor.
Do we have a motion for the resolution? Trustee Kazone?
Mr. President, I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? Trustee Wagner?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with one question. What's the change that we have to have some redesign?
We are not actually redesigning. This is just to finish the original design. All the items mentioned here in the synopsis were additional tasks that we've already asked the consultant to do. So they ate up the budget for the design by performing these other tasks. So now we're asking for, the addendum so that they go ahead back to the original design and finish up that project.
So you're referring to like the overflow routing? Of the
Overflow routing was part of it, yes. And we're very hopeful on the grant. Actually, IEMA passed the grant on to FEMA just 2 weeks ago, so we're still in the running for that. So that, if we get the grant, that'll more than justify the additional expenses.
Yes, for sure. Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Tucker?
Ascension, this isn't an add-on for a change order type thing. This is a brand-new thing that you're adding on to.
No, this is
Because
an
we already
addendum
had
to the existing design contract. For engineering contracts, they call them addendums.
Okay. So we're basically adding on to the contract we originally approved, is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
And the additional changes is this amount?
Right.
Because-
It's because of the additional items that we asked them to perform that weren't in the scope of their original agreement. All those things that came up with the soil conditions and the grant and the lighting and the outfalls.
Trustee Allen?
What's the expanded service area?
Remember when we were looking to acquire a piece of property on Washington Street? So they were actually looking at whether we could extend the storm sewer to that area versus buying it out, which was more cost effective. And even though we ended up not buying that property, we did end up adding a couple of additional inlets in the Washington Green Infrastructure Project to try and mitigate the flooding over there.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Tucker?
Yes.
Trustee Kazone?
Yes.
Trustee Wagner?
Yes.
Trustee Silella?
Yes.
President Volkes?
Yes. Item 17 is appointment to boards and commissions. I'm going to go down this list. The majority of these are reappointments. There are a couple new, and I'll just point those out special. Those are new appointments, and these terms run till 2021, except for one, and I'll point that out when we get to that. Okay. Cable Commission, Sid Berg and Gene Hockensmith. Economic Development Commission, Larry Calvert, Ben Golino, and Tony Otto. Historic Preservation, Jose Costello and Carol Marcus. Zoning and Planning Commission, Ken Jackson, Jason Jarrett, Mike Orlowski, and Morgan Rickle. Larry Calvert is a new appointment. Senior Concerns Commission, Bob Allen. Traffic and Safety, Jack Cuddenbertson, Jay Pinkos, Carl Timmerman, Karen Timmerman, and the new appointment is Marie Geishecker. And the Sugar Creek Golf Course is Trustee Don Case. He's a new appointment, and that term runs just through April of 2019. Do I have a motion for the appointment to boards and commissions?
President Volkes, I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, and second?
Second, please.
Trustee Yellow, any questions or comments? All in favor, roll call vote, please. We could do it all in favor.
Trustee Kazone?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Tucker?
Yes.
Trustee Wagner?
Yes.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Silella?
Yes.
President Volkes?
Yes. Okay, now we're going to go back up to the beginning and historic preservation, and we're going to start out with a proclamation. Reflection here, right? This is Historic Preservation Month of 2018. Whereas This Place Matters is a theme for the National Preservation Month of 2018, co-sponsored by the Villa Park Historical Preservation Commission and the Village of Villa Park to celebrates and honors the past while looking forward to the future. And where the Village of Villa Park recognizes and is proud to have 2 National Registered properties, over 80 buildings that have been historically recognized, and 2 locally designated historical landmark business districts. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped the Village of Villa Park and us as a people. And whereas most historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth, sustaining development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historical preservation encourages community reinvestment, saving resources, and promoting sociality, culturality, and the economically rich communities. And whereas historic preservation is inherently economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable, fostering a culture of reuse and maximizing the life cycle of all resources through conservation. Now therefore I, Albert Bolthus, the village president of Villa Park, do proclaim May 2018 as Villa Park Historic Preservation Month and call upon the people of Villa Park to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance. Thank you. And I think our chairman of the Historical Preservation Commission, Carol Marcus, is here, and she has some awards she wants to announce.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I made a mistake about the time. Whoopsie. This place is unique. This is the theme of the National Preservation Week, and how true it is for us when we're celebrating our wonderful accomplishments in Money Magazine. What a great place to live. We have diverse architecture. Our town is now over 100 years old, and our building stock is very, very desirable. We get a lot of compliments when people come to the village. Also, it takes preservation, though, to maintain our older homes, and I think our residents have done a wonderful job on that. So I'm here tonight to present 2 awards. The first award, I think they probably left. I saw them over there. They didn't know about my screw-up. Goes to Mark and Jessica Paulson on East Park Boulevard, and it's a solidly built French cement block home built in 1914. It's officially called the Hayden House. Now, Mr. Hayden owned a lot of land that's near the Prairie Path, and he subdivided that property into 7 lots. And I'm not sure, he was a carpenter, I'm not sure if he built his house. I have no way of knowing that. But he was kind of an important person in town. And also, the house has rich history. You've probably heard the family name Sinibaldi. Yep. Sinibaldi family, there were 8 children, all brothers. They contributed a lot to the development of Villa Park. I wish we could call it the Sinibaldi house, but we can't. It's always after the first owner. They were employed by the village, worked at Ovaltine, were cement and building contractor. I believe they built part of the chimney that had been at Ovaltine, and they contributed to building this fantastic town. So congratulations to Mark and Jessica. They have 2 small kids, and I'm so sorry that they were not here. The next person to receive the award is John Pollock. He has a wonderful, significant house on West Park Boulevard, and it's a Sears house. And so he gets the Delray model, the Sears house. It was built in 1925. It's a arts and craft stucco bungalow home in mint condition. In addition to that, there are wonderful gate markers up in front that are original. And you were telling me the story over the weekend that he loves those gate markers, and it's part of the architecture of the home. And I congratulate you for your fine work. Would you like to say any few words about your house, or?
Just I've lived in Villa Park for about 15 years, grew up in Lombard, and it's been a lot of work, but it's a very nice house, and it's nice to see that the village recognized people that put that kind of effort in. Thank you very much. And I think there's lots of other Sears houses in the neighborhood, and it really makes an interesting place to be.
We think we have 80, maybe even surpassing Downers Grove, but we really have only authenticated 14 that received this honor, and it's really great. I know where all these houses are, and I now know who is kind of helping to assist and attract people to purchase that house. We also have, thank you. We also have a Frank Lloyd Wright home in the Mies van der Rohe designed bank building in town. It's a very world-class, significant things. If you ever do a Google on that, Villa Park goes right up there on top of the list. To celebrate National Historic Preservation Week, the Villa Park Historical Museum has self-paced walking tours. You're more than welcome to come in and pick one up. I'd like to thank the village board, the village manager, all the department directors, and everybody that I work with, and I get around a lot, don't I? And we have, especially for your support of historic preservation, we have a wonderful new pavilion that is right adjacent to the museum. It's just awesome. Thank you, Greg, residents of Villa Park and everything like that. And Jan, I mean, we made it happen. Also, Jan was responsible, and I'm sure there was like a whole slew of other people there that received awards, but the gateway marker that demarks the beginning of the Great Western Trail, that's just awesome. And fitting with this bike plan, I mean, this is why we're number 8 and number 28, really. And when we get that other thing in there, we could be even more. Also, thank you for the recent fixes to the museum. We had some stones that broke a couple windows, not significant windows, but the village promptly replaced the glass and put new screens in. Those little things are what makes the town a little better, and I thank everybody for that. And let's see what else I have to say. Oh, my commission needs commissioners. We have 2 on the commission only. I need 3 more. So if anybody sees me around town or is interested in history, preservation, architecture, and can meet on the first Thursday of the month, appreciate it. We only meet 6 times a year, so it's not that bad, and I would appreciate that. Also, the village website has all the photos and narratives of all the historic homes. You could go and view that on the village website. This is the form, but we don't use paper. You could download it. And residents who pass the criterion could apply for the plaque. It has to be an older home. It has to be in good condition. It's somewhat historic, so but we help people walk through this process. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Carol, before you leave, I was reading something, other thing you had going on at the Historical Society. Passport to Adventure. Do you have any
Oh yes,
information on
that's
that?
great. Actually, everybody in DuPage and Kane County, the Kane DuPage Regional Museum Association puts out a book. It's a free program to encourage families to visit all the area museums and sites. Effectively May 1st, and the program is going to be extended to all year. You could use the same book. So the purpose of the book is you visit the museum and you get a stamp, and then you go on your merry way. You collect 6 stamps, and then you send it in. There's an opportunity to win $25. Each of the sites, and it publishes the hours. Our museum is open 6 days during the summertime, but other museums may only be open 1 day or 2 days and things like that because they're actually much smaller and they're not on the prairie path. We are the only bathroom on 40 miles of trail, and we are, if not one of the most frequent historical museums that they heard of, and they verify that with a count, right, Jen? Nobody believes us, but we go through sometimes a case of toilet paper in 1 month, so I know for a fact. That's a small history.
That's the 28th rating.
Yeah.
And the 8th.
You asked and I tell them. But the booklet is used all year, so at the end of 6 months, and during the winter time, they allow only 2 stamps per 2 months, and that encourages people to continue that, and there's more opportunities to win money and prizes and things like that. So that's the program. Thank you.
Thank you for your dedication to the Historical Society. Without you, it would not.
Oh, no, we've got great people there. I've been involved there for 33 years,
Right.
and so has part of my board. I got a great bunch of people there that know history. I'm sure everybody has stopped by, and we got railroad experts. We maintain a small little resale shop there so we could use our fundraising and all that. But thank you for the compliment.
Thank you.
I can't do it by myself. It takes everybody to run a village.
You can send the applications to serve on the commission right to me. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Another 3 years.
Thank you, Carol. The next item on the agenda is public participation on non-agenda items. Clerk Kornecki, do we have anyone?
I have no one signed up.
Okay, this is somebody has something, that's your last chance, and we'll move on. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move down to the clerk's report.
Well, I have the just to follow up, this Thursday is the senior fair at the VFW, and there's a lot of work that's been put into this event, and we really hope that people will come out. This is not just for people who are retired, it's those who have family members and you want information, and it's an interesting time. And we have probably at least 25 or more participants. So it's a very interesting, a variety of people will be presenting things, and I think it should be a very nice event. We hope it's supported by the community. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. We'll move down to the trustees report. We'll start on the right. Trustee Ciala.
No report this evening.
Thank you. Trustee Kazone.
I've just got one thing. Carl's not here, but the Villa Park Historical Society is calling all artists. They're having an art show on Saturday, May 19th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. At the museum. They're looking for local artists that want to come out and show their wares and their either photography, sculpture, prints, jewelry. There is a $20 fee for a 6x8 space. The sign-up deadline is May 13th. You can call the Villa Park Historical Museum 630-941-0223. I believe it's also on our website, the information on that. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Case.
Yeah. This time of the year, it really bothers me by Dairy Queen. Driving down St. Charles, I'm just wondering who owns that property for somebody to pull a bollard up or something to protect those people that are standing there? Is that village property, or is that... It's not just Dairy Queen, it's a lot of the businesses. And I know I brought this up 3 years ago, but I'm going to bring it up until something's done.
Well, traffic and safety, as I know, has addressed that issue a number of times, and I think if I remember right, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who was on the commission, the village's property is just basically the sidewalk. And then past the sidewalk is Dairy Queen's.
So from the road to the sidewalk, well, that would be enough to put something right there to stop something.
But then you couldn't use the sidewalk.
Why wouldn't you be able to?
To walk the sidewalk.
You're just talking about putting one bollard up.
Well, you know, what we can do, we can refer that to the Traffic and Safety Commission. I think that falls in their thing, and they'll have the history of what they've done in the past. So,
yeah.
Got that, Bob?
I keep bringing it up, and
it's
never
been brought up every year.
Well,
forever.
let's get traffic and safety to do something about it then. So,
okay.
I like everything. Better stop.
That's scary. It is.
Yeah. So. Well, we'll probably wait till somebody gets hurt. That's usually the way it happens. But I'll stop.
Okay. Trustee Ayala.
How big's a bollard, Don?
It could be anywhere from 8 inches to 12 inches.
Concrete or steel?
You could, yeah. They go about 4 feet into the ground.
Okay. I don't have anything. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Tucker?
I have a couple things. I'd like to invite people to remind them that the Park and Rec meeting is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at Iowa Center, 338 North Iowa Avenue, in case you didn't know where it's at. Also a reminder, now that spring has actually arrived, I'd like to remind the people of Villa Park to be a little more watchful for bikers, both the motor and pedal power ones. Our skateboarders, our runners, and our walkers that are out on our paths as you drive through town, please be alert to that, because we do have a lot of intersections that go across. So please be alert to those going on, because we've got more people using our paths now and our streets and our sidewalks. So if you could kind of be more aware of that. Don't forget to continue to check in on our village websites, our Facebook and tweet, because we've got a lot of upcoming things going on now that the weather's getting better. There's more events being posted, and I hate anyone to miss those, because there's a lot of things going on now that the weather's getting nicer. And last of all, I'd like to wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day on Sunday. That is it.
Trustee Wager.
Thank you, President Poltis. Just a couple things. As mentioned, Traffic and Safety Commission will be meeting here at Village Hall tomorrow at 8 p.m. Want to mention about Stream Sweep. Our local effort will be gathering at Cricket Creek Forest Preserve on Fullerton Avenue in the parking lot, and we'll be going from 9 a.m. to noon, just cleaning up the stream bank along Salt Creek. Also want to mention that the Calvary United Methodist Church will be holding a pancake breakfast on Saturday the 19th from 9 a.m. to noon, and they're located at Highland and Summit. And that's all I have. Thank you.
The President's report, I got a couple things. The library is having their ribbon cutting for their new expansion on Saturday the 19th from 1 to 2:30. So if you're available, stop over by the library and participate. And I also read and see that the police department is having an open house. So if the chief would like to come up here to the mic and tell us about the open house and the police department.
Yeah, we're going to have our first open house since the police department was open, I can't remember, 12 years ago, 15 years ago. It's going to go from about 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. or so. We'd like families to come out and take a tour of the police department, the police cars, meet some of the officers. We may have some officers from other jurisdictions and firemen there as well. So hoping for some good weather and a nice day.
Okay. Thank you.
What day is it?
Saturday the 19th, along with everything else.
I thought I read somewhere you're going to come down Ardmore or something from the Prairie Path.
Yeah, we're actually going to start it out with a silent parade. The 19th is significant, but it's because it's the end of Police Week and remembrance of the fallen officers. So I figured we'd start it that way and have a nice little presentation.
Okay, thank you. And if I'd like to just bring out everybody who had an opportunity to come to the 8 and 28 celebration that we did on this last Saturday. It was a wonderful event, and there were a lot of people there, and I had a really good time. So I thought maybe our director, Jan Fiello, could come up and give us a little information on how that event went and what the committee's feedback is.
Thank you. Yes, we were hoping for 200 people to attend, and we had over 500. So as far as the number of people, it was very, very successful. What I wanted to focus tonight's attention on was the art competition we had. So as part of the Showcase Celebrate 8 and 28 event, on April 28th at the Odeum, students were invited to participate in an art competition, and we had several really awesome entries, and Joe Montgomery from MGA Insurance provided gift cards and ribbons to the winning entries, and so we have them in front of the DS for you tonight. And I'd like to just quickly recognize those winners. We had 4 different categories for age groups. So the winners of kindergarten K through second grade was Nicole Rossi. I don't know if they can form, starting at the far left, Nicole Rossi, The Falling Leaf Around Friends, and Ella Bishkop about Happy Snow Day. The next grades 3 through 5, Zachary Gonzalez with his Prairie Path in the Fall, and Arisia Kanzikasas about Sunny Bunnies. Grades 6 through 8 was Mishba Kaludi. Really nice live music in the air, very, very customized to Villa Park. Very proud of that one. Jasmine Landis, also Rebirth. And in the high school on grades 9 through 12, Sydney Wilson and Sandy Orizaba. So with that, we will be presenting these, keeping them in Village Hall for the next couple weeks, and then returning them to the students before the end of the school year. So we want to thank all the students who participated and for all the entries, and once again want to recognize all the winners for their participation also. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the commission that put this all together, and to again to the people the students who have submitted the art and the groups that performed. We have some real good talented people in Villa Park. So thank you all very much. So With that, we'll move to the manager's report.
Well, Your Honor, a lot of my information was taken, but just want to remind everyone our next meeting is May 21st.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll move down to the next item, 23, executive session. 5 ILCS 120/2 C1, personal matters. C2, personnel matters. C2, collective bargaining matters. C5, purchase or lease of property. C6, sale and lease of property. C11, probable or imminent litigation. C21, discussion of closed session minutes. Do I have a motion for executive session? Trustee Case?
Make the motion.
Do we have a second? Trustee Cielo? Okay, all, roll call, please.
Okay, trustee Kazone?
Yes.
Trustee Wagner?
Yes.
Trustee Tucker?
Yes.
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Salello?
Yes.
President Volkes?
Yes. And with that, we'll be going into executive session. We'll be coming back for the last item on the agenda. It's a vote on a labor agreement. So with that, we'll go into session. Thank you all for coming.